Hi everybody, welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. As you may know, I'm an educator, an entrepreneur, and a professor at the University of Houston Clear Lake. My main goal is to introduce you to pioneers in the field of education and to let you know about topics that you may not be aware of, but you may be interested in. Today we are at the Yoga Heaven, one of the most prestigious yoga studios in Galveston, Texas. Today we have the honor to have with us Johnston, a marine biologist who has changed the life of many utilizing yoga education. Thank you so much for being with us today, Michelle.
Of course, thank you for having me.
It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
All right, Michelle, so can you explain the audience a little bit? First of all, what is yoga? Because there's a lot of, I would say, lack of knowledge out there still about yoga. How do you, why do you feel so passionate about yoga? And is yoga a hobby for you, a way of life? What does it take to become a yoga instructor?
Well, that's a lot of questions. So I'll start with the first one. What is yoga? Yoga is a way to unite or essentially yoke the body, the breath, and the mind. A lot of people think that yoga is a religion, but it's not. Yoga is a 5,000-year-old body of Indian knowledge that is really a science and an art combined. And really, it's a way of harmonizing the body and linking together the breath, the physical self, and the mind through meditation to create a more balanced state of being. So, very simplified, yoga is uniting all of these things in our physical self. Why am I passionate about yoga? I have many passions. Yoga is one of them. And when I was in college, I went to school in North Carolina to study marine biology. I was a spaz. I'm a type A personality. I'm very energetic. I tend to overthink. I overstress. I'm a runner. And I like to do a lot of stuff all the time. And I just found that I was, studying all the time, stressed, and somebody was like, you should go to a yoga class. And so I went to a yoga class at the campus recreation center there, and I actually hated it the first time I went to a yoga class. I was like, this is awkward. Why are all these poses named after animals? I don't, this is weird, I'm too still, I want to move around. But I went running the next day and shaved like 5 minutes off my time.
Wow.
And so I was like, maybe there's something to this yoga. I felt more relaxed, I felt better. So I started going back. And the more I went to class, the more I found that all of that stress, classes, worrying about exams, for an hour and 15 minutes in a yoga class, it all went away. And I was just able to concentrate on my body and how I felt. And, I was able to let go of trying to solve the problems of the environment and the world and just focus on just being. And that was such a relief. It was so nice. And I just became hooked. And so I started going to more yoga classes, I started to take workshops, I went through teacher training, and really found that it was a good complement to my science job, which can be very stressful, to have this other side of yoga that's very peaceful and relaxing, and it really became more of a way of life than two different things. It just became part of me. And I feel like I used to tell people, well, I'm a runner. Now I tell people, well, I'm a yogi who runs. And it really helped me both physically and mentally be a better person.
How long have you been teaching? Have you been doing yoga and teaching yoga?
So I've been teaching yoga since I was a senior in undergrad. So that would have been like 2004-ish.
Exactly.
It's 2018 now,
Exactly.
so a long time.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I love it. I never feel like it's a task. I just feel like it's something I like to do. And hey, I get paid for it too. So
that's amazing.
That's really nice.
And I want to touch a little bit on the mental health issue later on, but I want us to start talking about the misperceptions that are still out there in regards to yoga. You know, even though it has been changing throughout the years, there's still a lot of lack of knowledge in regards to yoga. For example, is it yoga for everybody? Is it only for girls? And of course we know the answer to that, but can you tell the audience why yoga is utilized with athletes, with any type of gender, race, ethnicity? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons yoga is so popular and that there's yoga studios all over the country is that yoga is for everybody.
Right.
There is a type of yoga out there that can fit everybody's needs. And yoga doesn't discriminate. Yoga is for anyone of any sex, race, gender, identity, physical ability. Yoga's for everyone. There is that misconception that maybe it's just for women.
Correct.
But that's not true. When I was in grad school at the University of South Carolina, I actually used to teach a yoga for men class.
Exactly.
And people are like, what do you do different? And I'm like, nothing. It's the same poses. It's just with a room full of men because for whatever reason they feel more comfortable, and no pressure for flexibility. But the great thing about yoga is that it's adaptable. We have props right here. I have a yoga block. We have these really cool things called props.
What is that for? What is that block
blankets. We have bolsters back here, and a prop is really good. You can put it on the floor and put your arm on the block, and it can be like a little bit of a bolster. It can help lengthen your arm so that if you're stretching and you can't touch the floor, well, you can put a block under your hand, and all of a sudden you can touch the floor. So everybody's body is different. And so we use props in yoga class to make the poses adaptable for any body type. So the misconception that, well, I have to be flexible to do yoga, so not true. You come the way you are and then adapt the class and you do what you can do. And you're gonna find usually that when you leave a class, you feel better than when you came in.
Correct.
And that's the goal, and then you just go from there because yoga is an evolution. It's a lifelong practice. You don't just do yoga once and say you've done it. You continue with it and start to grow as your body changes, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but yoga's for everyone.
I want you to talk about, you're actually leading towards that, because how is that educational process within the yoga? Where do people tend to struggle the most? Let's talk about a person who have never done yoga in their life, and they're starting in their 40s, myself, how's that learning process? Where based on your experience, where do people tend to struggle the most, and when do you see that shift, that switch, when they start feeling more comfortable with yoga after they start?
Yeah, well, I think it just depends on the person.
Sure.
Some people are much better at the physical aspect, coming to a class and doing the poses. But, there's much more to yoga than the poses. There's the study of yoga, there's meditation. Some people struggle with the meditation aspect, like me. I fully admit that. I'm a yoga teacher, I struggle with that. To just sit and be quiet for a little bit is harder for me because I'd rather be doing the physical part of it. So it just kind of depends on what you like, and you'll figure it out, what you're better at, and but really what you need to do is just get to a class. Start with a yoga class and go from there. And that's where most people, start with yoga. They go to a class, and most people are coming because of something else. They have an injury, or their doctor has told them you need to start doing yoga to relax. A lot of people have a reason why they're coming. And most people come to a yoga class, like how my experience was, and they're like, oh, this is nice. Oh, I like this. I didn't realize, this is what yoga really is. I get to stretch my body and do these poses that make me feel really good. And so, the process is that, while, it might feel hard at the beginning, you start to like it. and then you move on from a class to maybe doing a private session with an instructor, like how you and I have done.
Right.
And then, once someone likes that, it's like, well, I'm going to do a weekend workshop,
Right.
and do a whole weekend, which those are offered all the time at studios. Teacher do workshops on a thing. And then maybe from there, it's like, well, I want to do an immersion. And there's
Right.
week-long yoga immersions where you can go do a retreat or whatever and just really study and detach from all the stresses in the world and, start doing yoga. And then, like me, I really loved it and wanted to become a teacher. So
Right.
I went through teacher training and most accredited teacher training schools, it's 200 hours to start.
Wow.
And, it's like a 6-month process to get through it. But as far as, where people, struggle, usually it's just getting in the door.
Correct.
Come to class, start somewhere, and, see what happens.
Well, and the other thing is that people tend to think that when you talk to folks out there, they tend to think that it's not a really workout, and I want you to tell the audience that yoga can be intense to the point that you can sweat a lot. You can feel like literally that you went to the gym when you go to yoga. And even though going back to your initial point, it becomes more an internal journey because everybody has their own process, and you really, I guess the point when you reach that moment when you don't care if people are judging you when you're doing the process. I remember you one time saying, you can be a jerk even if you do the best pose in the world, because at the end it's about the internal journey. But yoga can be a really hard workout.
It can, and it depends on the style of yoga.
Correct.
Here at the Yoga Haven, we offer many different styles. There's Vinyasa yoga. Vinyasa means to flow. So it's a faster pace. You're working through the poses a little bit more athletically. And so it is. It's more like a workout. You build up body heat, you sweat. But there's also other styles like Yin yoga, which, you're holding the poses longer and, it's more relaxing. There's restorative yoga where you use a lot of props to lay and just allow yourself to calm down and open. Here at the Yoga Haven, there's focus classes on certain parts of the body, like focus classes on knees or shoulders. So there's all different types of styles of yoga that you can do. Again, that can fit every need, can fit everybody. And I think one of the things that I try to get across is that, it's not just about what you're practicing on your mat. It's about taking that good, calm feeling off your mat and out into your day. Okay. It doesn't benefit everyone if you come to a yoga class, go out into your day, and somebody cuts you off when you're driving, and then you scream at them out the window. Like, that doesn't solve anything, and you've totally lost all of that calmness that you were just practicing in yoga. Because we want to practice in yoga being a good person. And like you said, I like to tell my students, you can come to class and bend yourself into a pretzel. You can do a handstand and still be an asshole.
Exactly.
So it's not about the poses.
Yeah.
It's about, this feeling of being balanced and then taking that balanced feeling into your life and interacting with other people in a balanced way. And when we do that, we tend to just be better people. We have better interactions. We communicate better, and that's how yoga spills over into life.
And I wanted to lead into the following questions. Those with so many years teaching yoga, what are the short-term and long-term benefits that you have seen in regular folks who started doing yoga? From the instructor perspective, what are the I would say immediate positive effects that you have seen in people when they start doing yoga?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of immediate physical effects that start to happen. Again, yoga is not just about the physical, but as human beings, that's tend to what we focus on. And one of the things that people notice right away is that they're stronger. After practicing yoga for a couple months, they have better muscle tone. You know, in yoga, we call this muscle energy, where we're engaging our muscles into our bones and really integrating the physical structure of the body. And so, you know, becoming stronger is, you know, something great. You know, we all want more definition. We want to be healthy, and so that's a benefit. Increased flexibility, you know, is a lot of reason why people come to yoga. They want to be more flexible, and we learn to align the body in a good way so that we can become more flexible. Like, for example, if I stretch my arm out and just lift it up, you know, I get stuck right about here. You know, I can't get my arm back because I haven't aligned myself well. Well, in yoga, I learned that if I extend and then draw my arm bone back into my shoulder socket, that's better alignment for this joint. And then I can reach and extend, and oh my gosh, my arm is all the way back by my ear now in good alignment where it's meant to be. So stretching just for the sake of stretching, you can get stuck, but if you learn these principles of alignment with anatomy and yoga, you know, you learn to basically stack the body in a good way. And so then you can take that off your mat and into your day, you know, when you're sitting at your office in your desk chair all day long. Well, instead of being hunched over, you know, my yoga brain flips on and I'm like, well, I should really lengthen and draw my shoulders back. And so it's all these principles that you learn in class and these poses that you can put into life. People a lot of times after practicing yoga have increased energy levels. They have better respiratory health. So another big aspect of yoga is breathing. In Sanskrit, the yoga terminology, we call this pranayama. And so actually increased lung capacity is something that happens, which makes the circulatory system function better. You know, a lot of athletes really love yoga because of this. You know, swimmers, runners, basically any type of athlete.
Even
when
football players.
Football players, who's the main football player? Tom Brady. Tom Brady focuses like, you know, or attributes a lot of his success,
Ray Lewis
you know,
too.
on yoga. And, you know, so many of the gymnasts, the Olympic gymnasts and Olympic swimmers, you know, talk about how the breath part of yoga helps them to become better athletes. Other things that, you know, people notice aside from the physical is that they're just more mindful because they are having to be present in a yoga class. You know, you're focusing on right here, right now in this body, not like what I have to do for, you know, to make dinner later.
Correct.
So we start to become more aware, and that's really important. People find that they're better able to manage stress because they are better aware, more aware of their bodies and just what's happening. People find that because they're more aware, they start to eat better, make better choices in food, maybe a salad versus, you know, like fast food. And so then that leads to, you know, weight loss and things like that, just because you're just hyper aware of what's going on in your body. And then, you know, something that's really great about yoga is that you meet really cool people. You know, like I got to meet you.
Exactly.
And some of my best friends that I've made in my whole life since I've been practicing yoga are some of my best friends, you know, and it's just from practicing together. You know, you come to class every week, you start to know people. You know, you start to share, and so you have this whole community, and you know, it's really nice. So there's so many benefits of yoga, from physical strength to mental clarity to having a community of people. You know, I could go on and on, but I think those are the big ones.
That's excellent. Now, what are the most important things that you can tell folks out there who have never tried yoga in their life and they're willing to try for the first time? What are the recommendations that you will give them?
I would say have an open mind. You don't have to do everything that the teacher does. Don't think that you have to be flexible or bend yourself into a pretzel to do yoga. Again, we have props. We can modify any pose to make it fit your body. So that's really important. Only do what feels good to you. If the teacher does a pose and in your mind you're like, no, that doesn't sound good to me, you don't have to do it. The yoga class is your class. It's your time. And if you have a good yoga teacher, they should tell you that. You know, we can modify. Do what feels good to you. Also, I tell people there's, you know, as we've talked about, lots of different styles of yoga. So try a lot of different styles. Try a lot of different teachers. You know, I've had people say, well, I tried a yoga class and didn't like it. it's like, well, maybe that style just isn't for you, or maybe you didn't click with that teacher.
It's like trying one type of Italian restaurant.
Exactly. It's like, trying a type of food.
Exactly.
You have to try lots of things before you settle down and find what you really like. So if it didn't quite seem like it was your favorite thing the first time, maybe try a different style, and like I said, a different teacher, and just keep an open mind. And yoga should feel good. Stretching the body feels good. So ultimately you should find a style that feels nice to your body. So keep an open mind. That's what I tell people.
That's awesome. Now, I want us to go in deep waters a little bit, talking about mental health. And there's a big debate in the country in terms of mental health. And I have done some interviews in analyzing the role of school counselors in schools. And the one topic that is important is there's starting to be some research out there in regards to the impact that yoga may have on student behavior, especially in schools. Some public schools have tried utilizing yoga as an intervention to modify behavior instead of having punitive, arrangements. First of all, I wanted to ask you, what do you know a little bit about the topic? Because I know that you're also an educator somehow in your field in biology. Do you have any recommendations for parents or educators out there, or school officials in general, in regards to the utilization of yoga in schools? Is it a crazy thing, or or in your opinion, it may be something that in the middle long term may work for students?
Well, I'm not a teacher. I'm a researcher for my job. But I have both my parents were teachers, and I have lots of friends who are teachers. So. I know a lot about teaching. And I actually go into schools and do educational programs for elementary school kids, a lot of times about marine science. And when kids get tired, I'm like, all right, stand up, let's take a stretch, and attitudes change. But there are a lot of elementary schools out there right now that are integrating yoga into their curriculum for behavior management. And there's a really good example about an elementary school in Illinois. It's Jefferson Elementary that have started integrating yoga after recess. And they take about 10 minutes after recess to do yoga. And recess is a crazy time for kids. They get to be wild, and energy levels go really high, and you come back in and kids can be spastic. And so what the teachers do is, after recess, they turn the lights off and they have 10 minutes of yoga breathing, and they practice a pose. The kids learn one pose each week. And what they found in the school, since they've started doing this program, is that discipline problems have really gone down. They don't have as many kids getting in trouble and going to the principal's office, and their test scores are way up. With just 10 minutes of yoga a day. So there really is, something to yoga. It calms the mind, it reduces stress. It helps to ground energy instead of being frantic and spastic. It really helps diminish, the frantic feeling that sometimes we have. There's other schools, and I've read articles about schools in New York where they've started to do yoga instead of detention. So when kids get in trouble, they go to meditation now instead of in-school suspension. And so basically it gives students space to think about what they've done, and why they did, and then they talk through it. They have time to think about it. And I think that's really important, and that's one of the benefits of yoga, is that when we take a few minutes to just breathe, to calm down, close our eyes and breathe, our mood changes, and we become calmer. And there's so much coming at us all the time, in life right now. It's busy. We've got Facebook, and people are on their phones all the time, and there's TV and computers, and it's almost too much for our brains to manage, and we get frazzled. And if we're frazzled all the time, no wonder students are misbehaving. you know, because they're spastic. So these schools that are using meditation and taking time to do a yoga pose instead of making kids feel like they're in trouble, where kids get defensive, they're finding it's just a better method. And after doing this, you know, they have less disciplinary problems at their school. I have several friends here in Galveston that teach, and they integrate yoga into their classrooms, and they've all said, you know, kids are just calmer after we do that. So as far as advice, you know, I would recommend parents or teachers come to a yoga class, you know, come take some yoga, see what it's about, and then maybe take some of these techniques that you learn in class and try it in your classroom and see what happens.
Is there a minimum age that you recommend for a child to start doing yoga, or there's no limit on that?
Well, you know, there's mommy baby yoga classes, you know, that, you know, start, you know, once a kid is born. But as far as like taking it into schools, you know, obviously, you know, kids have to know what's going on. They have to be able to follow instructions and sit and breathe. But there's special classes out there, and we've done actually special workshops here at the Yoga Haven, Friday night family yoga night, where kids can come, they learn some poses. Usually it's the poses named after animals, because you can make funny sounds and, you know, it makes sense to them. But there are tools, there's lots of great information online. You know, you can search yoga for kids and learn how to do it, and, you know, integrate that into your home or your classroom.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you one more time for being here with us today, Michelle. Folks out there, remember that you can look at this video and any other videos on our YouTube channel, startingevaluationandassessment.com. Stay tuned and see you next time.